You are listening to the Sod Pod, brought to you by Grassland Agro.
So hello and welcome to this episode of the Sod Pod. Currently, this episode is going out on the 24th of April, so slowly on the calendar anyway, getting towards the end of spring, heading for the summer, and hopefully I suppose the weather will start to reflect that. So we're joined today with Clodagh Bulger. Clodagh is a product and technical sustainability manager down in the south of the country. So Clodagh, how are you keeping?
Morning, Peter. How are you? You say heading into summer, the end of spring. Geez, I'd say a lot of farmers would be happy to see the back of this spring anyway. Um, Things are going
Uh,
fine, yeah. I suppose over the last couple of weeks, things have been kept going between farm visits, industry days, farm walks, and things like that. I suppose over the last week or so for myself, I was at a grass walk there with the Dairy Women Ireland last week. If anyone doesn't know what that is, it's kind of a network set up there for women in dairy or anyone that has interest in dairy. They do kind of webinars and host events and things like that. But the grass walk was with John Maher from the Grass 10 and Mary McAvoy from Germinal. So talked all things grass, clover, reseeding, cows. So I was in my element there for the day. And I suppose, look, the week before, Peter, the two of us were involved in those Pasture Progress Awards with the Grass 10. I know Stephen kind of outlined on the last podcast what was involved there with the Grass 10 Awards, but look, it was nice to meet the farmers and I suppose reward them for all their hard work and dedication to grass. I know some of the figures were up there for a couple of the farmers, and some of them had done up to, was it 50 grass walks last year? So, Jesus, you be kept fair fit. But how about you, Peter? Have you been busy on farm and stuff at the moment, or what's the story?
yeah, a lot of it at the minute, I suppose, look at small little tweaks and changes to some of the nutrient management plans. Look at the spring obviously didn't go as planned in
Mm.
terms of nutrient applications, and just I suppose with that there's a few twists and turns coming in terms of ATCs and farms just looking how best to maybe how to tweak it now and changing around dates for cutting silage and different nutrient applications just to make sure maybe they haven't got the P's and K's out where they thought they would have had, how we can balance that maybe and move the plan around slightly, so stuff like that. And as you say, we were at the Past the Progress Awards too, and some really phenomenal figures, in terms of the grass that's been grown and utilised, right across the country. And as you say, the farm walks is definitely one that seems to be on the upward trend in terms of like up 150 right across the year. Like, but look, that's obviously that's what it takes to, I suppose, to get get that high level of utilization and growing the tons of it, and even what we see what they're doing from a fertilizer point of view in terms of how dialed in they are and trying to get the I suppose the balance of the pH, the P's and K's. So just you mentioned there about the Dairy Women Ireland discussion group, Clodagh. Is that spread? Is that all towards the south of Ireland, or is that spread across the country, or where all is the geographic regions
No,
there that caters for?
that it's right across the country, Peter. So there's different regional groups. If you actually look them up on Instagram, you can drop them a message or whatever, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction. I'm actually on the kind of committee, let's say, for Westminster. So there just does be kind of, I suppose, events within your region, and there does be kind of national events then. So they do webinars kind of once a month on different topics, all related to dairy. Or I actually think that one of the latest ones was something to do with, was it yoga or Pilates? So there's kind of something for everyone really on it. And they have a conference then every November. So, it's a great network for women in dairy, I suppose.
Absolutely, absolutely, great to see. And I suppose even like we'll have the local discussion groups. Obviously, it's you're all probably farming a similar enough kind of terrain or ground, or probably it's no harm to see across the country that every region, the spring we had has its challenges that, it's not localized and it's not just one particular cohort. So, sometimes when you can emphasize with other people or in terms of the challenges, there's some bit of relief there that, farmers they're not on their own in that sense.
Yeah, 100%.
So I suppose, look, we'll a little bit different, I suppose, today's podcast in the sense that we're not really going to get into, I suppose, the technical aspect of what's happening on the ground as such. We're going to focus a little bit more, I suppose, on something within our company. And Clodagh, you're going to tell us a little bit more about that. You're heading to France, I believe, next week, or you were last week, I should say, yourself and some of the ATCs. for an animal production event. But look, I suppose you've been there. I'll not risk explaining it in case I leave out some of the detail. Maybe you might just give us an update on what it's all about and what's happening. And I suppose we're just aware too that some of our listeners will be familiar with the fertilizer side, but maybe on the animal production side as well. Maybe give us a bit of an introduction there too, please.
Yeah, no bother. So yeah, it was all very exciting. Myself and four of our sales reps headed over to the main office and factory there in Saint-Malo in France last week. So myself, Aoife Quinn, Jack Kingston, Noel Hamell, and Eoin O'Keeffe. There's a fairly good crew of us there. I got them there and back in one piece because it's not, I suppose, the easiest of places to get to. But anyway, we pulled it off. So I suppose, look, just in terms of why we were actually going, last year the group celebrated 40 years in animal production. So for those of you that don't actually know, we have an animal production side to the business. So that involves mineral blocks. So we have mineral blocks, I suppose, geared towards breeding, feed efficiency, and the overall health of the cow. So there's seven different mineral blocks there. And we also have a bedding agent called Actisan and a slurry enhancer called ActiGlean. So the lads were representing Grass and Agro, which involved them giving a presentation. And there was other sales reps presenting from other subsidiaries as well around the world there too. So look, it was a great opportunity there for the lads, I suppose, to showcase their knowledge and, for us if we wanted to pick up any information from the other subsidiaries that are there as well. So, you've been there too, Peter, in the past. You've seen the work and the research that goes into the different technologies that are involved in our products. So it's great for the lads to see that as well. We got a tour of the CMI, which is where they do all the research on the different technologies, and we got to see the factory and the mineralarium, if that's the way you pronounce it. It's a museum on minerals. So I suppose the one thing that scared me about going over there, Peter, and you'll be able to relate to this, was the grub.
I think good job we don't have John O'Loughlin on this podcast for that one. Oh, shit.
It's like, I don't know about you, but before the last time I was there, not this time, but last time before, I got some fairly unique dishes out there now. You'd be delighted to see the spud now when you come home.
Yeah, I think the first time I went, the lads had been over before, obviously, and they had, I think, a bit of a raw experience in that regard in terms of some of the dishes that were presented. So, and I think the feedback back to France. So, thankfully, by the time I know when I went over, there was a bit of ironing out and leveling out done. So, there was a few more palatable dishes that ticked the box for me. So, I think I was probably on the. I wasn't too bad. Some of the lads who went before me now had the hard or the heavy lifting done and had to endure the local cuisine. Although shout out to John Brennan, I think I seen him eating a fairly raw dish when I was over there the last time.
Oh,
Something I wouldn't
Jesus.
have chanced. I'll let him defend that one now the next time he's on the podcast. Camille, just like something you mentioned there was about like going over to see St. Malo and maybe just for listeners who aren't familiar, like Grassland Agro, it's a subsidiary or part of Timac Group really.
Hmm.
And in St. Malo, that's like the HQ of the world. So obviously we've Ireland, there's different and there's all other countries as well who are part of the group. But the thing that struck me was the research and development that goes into these products over there. And the level of investment and expertise, there's a full research and scientific laboratory over there where all these different products are tested. It's not just coming from what would you say, the likes of academic research and ingredients included in the blocks. There's really a high level done over there in terms of testing different, molecules being extracted out of seaweed based and plant products as well to how best they can actually fit a specific need on farm, be it in terms of, benefiting the rumen pH or improving fibre digestion, so would that be fair to say, it's not just the mineral block range. There's a lot of kind of added benefits there too, Clodagh, that's there to address needs or issues that's on farm.
Yeah, you actually don't even realize it until you go over there, the amount of time that's invested into all of that. And even the four lads there that were there with me, they were blown away by it, like that the amount of research that goes into the different technologies and stuff. But I suppose we're going to hear on the next part of this podcast from the four lads how they got on out in France and if they learned anything or seen anything interesting out there. So I suppose stay tuned to hear the continued discussions there with the lads as well. So. Okay, so I'm joined here with Eoin, Aoife, Jack and Noel, all covering from the west of Ireland down to the southeast of the country. So we're back now from Saint-Malo a couple of days. We've had time to, I suppose, digest the information that was thrown at us over there from our French colleagues. We had a busy few days visiting factories and getting tours of Saint-Malo and everything. The lads will go through that now over the next 10 to 15 minutes. So look, lads, I hope you enjoyed your time in Saint-Malo and you gave a great presentation on the day there as well. You might give me a run through, I suppose, what went on over there, and was there anything interesting you want to share? Noel, I'll jump to you first on that one.
Thanks, Clodagh. Firstly, I'd like to thank Grassland for the opportunity to travel over to France to see our parent factory and parent company. It was, I've been in the company 10 years and it was a very intensive trip really. We left Dublin on Monday morning, arrived in Paris, Charles de Gaulle Airport. We took, our first train was from Paris up to Rennes, an hour and a half through the countryside. It was really nice to see the French countryside, something similar to our own countryside here, probably a lot more tillage, but quality of land much the same. Then we travelled from Rennes up to Saint-Malo. We arrived there late on Monday night, hit the bed early to be ready for Tuesday. Tuesday was jam-packed. Tuesday morning we met our French colleagues who really, really looked after us very well. Their friendship and generosity, they really introduced us to their local culture and cuisine, which is a far cry from what we're used to here in Ireland, and there's no bacon and cabbage on the menu over there.
Jeez, I seen you eating a slug or a snail over there.
I tell you one thing, that snail is still in my stomach. But anyway, when in Rome you do as the Romans do, and they were really good to us. Like, they took us to all the top restaurants, so we had to get involved with them and try out their local habits. So look, it was really intensive. Like, from 8:30 in the morning Tuesday morning, we met our colleagues from other countries. So we met a delegation from Uruguay, Spain and Turkey. And I suppose our introductions were on Tuesday morning, and to help us find it, took us on a walk and tour of the old town of Saint-Malo, and after dinner, Tuesday after dinner, we
went to the CMI.
Yes, Aoife will talk about that there later. Wednesday morning, I suppose we're all a little bit nervous. I wasn't, I was only sitting on the sidelines. Three colleagues gave a fabulous presentation. We went on a factory tour, which I really enjoyed, because we're out there selling products on farm. It's nice to see where it came from, and even though we know the technology, it's nice to see it in action as well. Finished up that evening with a boat tour again of the area, and we left on Thursday morning. Back to reality Thursday night for more action on the ground Friday morning.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Noel. I suppose just to get into a little bit more detail about what went on in the days, Eoin, I might jump to you there. Was it the Wednesday morning you had the presentation? You might tell me a little bit about what you had to present in that presentation.
Yeah, so it was myself, Aoife and Jack gave the presentation there. I suppose we started off with introducing, I suppose, our areas. Myself and Jack are both covering the south of the country, Aoife was covering the west, so we just got into a bit of detail on the production systems there. So, like, as Noel outlined earlier on, we had lads from Turkey, Uruguay and Spain, so it was really important, I suppose, to put frame on what we actually do in Ireland and how the products fit into the different production systems we have. So look, we obviously centred a lot on dairy, let's say, and talked about how the success of the block is down to, I suppose, the fact that in Ireland we have block calving system, spring-based calving for the majority, and as a result of that we make use of the fact that we're calving cows inside. So the pre-calver obviously is a massive one from that point of view. Actisan as well the dangerous part of the year, let's say when we're drying off cows and calving down cows in the spring, and talked about the success of that. We also talked about, I suppose, the FOS block and the success that we have with the FOS block, considering that, I suppose, this time of year now, pre-breeding, we have very little input on the mineral quality of the forage, so the FOS block is obviously a great one from that point of view for managing your minerals pre-breeding. Another thing we actually did was we talked about the weaker products that we have there, and talked to the French about coming up with possible solutions to fixing the few gripes that we'd have with the couple of blocks there that would be the lower performing ones. So yeah, we really did learn a lot from the other countries, and we gave them a fair education too on the success of the products that we have in the country. And to be fair, they were very, very interested. I mean, the Uruguayans and the Spanish would have had a similar enough production systems to each other, and we kind of stood out a small bit from that. I know Aoife had a good conversation with the Uruguayans, let's say, on what they're at over there. So I'll pass you over to Aoife now.
Yeah, as was already mentioned, I suppose we give an insight into what we do here in Ireland. And as a result, then we also learned from the other ATCs that had travelled from Turkey, Spain and Uruguay. I suppose starting with Turkey, they generally tend to actually have small-scale family farms. They would be quite heavily involved in cattle, sheep and goats. However, in recent times, there has been an increase in poultry and aquaculture. I suppose over there, what they would consider a big farm is anywhere from 100 to 150 heads. So as a result, the large-scale farms are actually quite limited. A challenge then that the lads from Turkey actually spoke about was, due to the increase in poultry and aquaculture, they are actually looking for more products from Timac Agro around poultry farming. And Timac actually did note that there is more research now being focused on poultry as a result of this. From the couple of ATCs then that were there from Spain, they have actually commented saying that there has been a huge decrease actually in milk production in the last 20 years. And I suppose this was down to the reason that there has been a decrease of nearly 7 to 8 cents per litre, which is actually now nearly lower than production cost over there. As well as this, I suppose then in the centre of Spain, I suppose they're focusing a bit more on sheep and goats. The milk there that's harvested from those is actually turned into cheese, and it's actually used in the country itself. And then as well as that, I suppose there's a big pig industry, so the prices there are increasing at a fairly significant rate. I suppose they're exporting to the likes of US, China and Europe. No more than Ireland, as well as that, I suppose they are having a lot of hassle around regulation in terms of using antibiotics. So I suppose vet prescriptions are now also required. So again, something similar to what we're seeing here in Ireland at the moment. In terms of Uruguay then, the number of farmers are actually decreasing, so the size of the farms are actually increasing then as a result. The average farmer age over there now is actually 60 to 62 years of age. So again, I suppose something similar to what we're seeing here in Ireland, maybe not as much interest coming from the younger generations in terms of taking over family farms, and as a result, some of them farms are now amalgamating together. In Uruguay then, I suppose around the country it's a little bit different itself. Up north they tend to have a lot of fruit and veg being grown, I suppose with the warmer climate. In the centre and in the east it's mainly livestock that's being produced, and then in the northeast they tend to produce a good bit of rice. So I suppose some of the key takes that we could learn from them countries was they do actually have quite similar challenges to ourselves here in Ireland. Even though we're spread all across the world with different climates, they still are running into issues such as the age profile of farmers, family-run farms and them being taken over, beef prices, I suppose, dictating a lot of what happens in them countries in terms of agriculture. And I suppose there was also a little bit spoken about some of the similar diseases that they would encounter in their countries, such as tuberculosis and that. So all in all, you could say we learned a good bit from the other countries, and I'm sure they enjoyed what we had to speak about from Ireland as well. So Jack, then I suppose if you maybe want to have a chat there about the CMI and what we did there as well.
Yeah, no, so I suppose, lads, actually the visit to the CMI on Tuesday evening was probably my favourite part of the whole trip. I suppose for people that wouldn't know, is the CMI is just the main research centre for the group. It was built in 2015, so it's a fairly new building, I suppose, and it contains 80 full-time staff. I suppose this is just where we're doing all the research into the products that we're out on the road talking to farmers about. So I suppose to just go and see this with our own eyes really opened us up to the research that's going on and how much testing and trials are actually going into this product. And one of the main takeaways that I think we all took, I suppose, from going to the CMI was that it takes 10 years of testing a product before the group, I suppose, puts it onto the market for us to actually go on and sell. So that really, really just gives you confidence into everything we're doing within the company throughout the full, I suppose, sustainability programme and everything we're trying to push and sell. So I suppose the CMI focuses on 4 main aspects, and the first aspect it really focuses on would be, I suppose, with regards to the crop and plant nutrition, with developing high performing and efficient fertilisers, such as, I suppose, the sulphamo, which I suppose we're all fairly commonly know of here. It's also focusing on soil health through different forms, I suppose, of soil conditioners. The fizzler would be the one we're most focused on, I suppose, here, and we all know a good bit about. And they're also focusing on marine-based biostimulants and trying to maximise crop yields. The next, I suppose, aspect they're really focusing on would be the scientific approach to it. So they have really, really intense labs over there where they can dictate different climates, be it temperature, be it weather, and test these products under different conditions. They can also have different diseases, I suppose, on the plant, so they can test different sprays and see how they react to different diseases before they release anything onto the market. They also have 2 artificial rumens for when they're testing the minerals and when they're testing the blocks to see how they actually cope with the cow before they're put on the market. I suppose then the next focus area they have would be with regards to animal nutrition. So they're trying to create solutions for livestock. They're focusing mainly on rumen health, on diet efficiency, and also mineral uptake. And the one thing we took from this is our most popular block that we sell here in Ireland, the pre-caver. It's actually exclusive to us. I suppose in other countries they sell just a carver, and the main difference between the 2 of them would be the vitamin pack that we have in our mineral block here in Ireland, so we can maximise the uptake of the minerals going into the animals. And the final point then, I suppose, that the CMI really touched on would be sustainability and innovation. So they're really focusing on trying to reduce the impact of that agriculture has on the environment through the use of our products, through the use of our phased release nitrogens, through the use of our Fizzlet and our soil health improvement products, which I would have touched on earlier. So look, I suppose we just all took that from visiting the CMI. It gave us a load of confidence in what we're doing here every day to keep on going on that route, and what we're doing is working, and we really are, I suppose, having a positive impact on Irish agriculture.
That's great, guys. Thanks for giving us all that insight. And I suppose it is important that you get to go over there, and it fills you with confidence on what the trials on our products, and it gives you a lot of confidence in them on farm as well. But fair play to you on the day, and well done. You did a great presentation, and so look, we'll leave it there, and look, we'll be back then again in 2 weeks' time. So for the moment, farm smart, farm safe.